Makurdeng sat on a wooden bench outside his home as the sun began to set, painting the sky orange and red. In his hand was a Bible, but he wasn't reading it. Instead, he stared at the horizon, deep in thought. His house behind him was noisy. Inside, his 4 wives were arguing again, their voices loud and sharp. Makur's shoulders dropped. He looked tired. There were dark circles under his eyes because he hadn't been sleeping well. He sighed deeply, thinking about his father, Deng Ane. Makur's father had been a very strong and strict man. He had 8 wives and 35 children. He ruled his house like a king. Everyone had to obey him, and no one could question his decision. Makur remembered his father's favorite saying, "A man's wealth is his family. Without sons, you are nothing." Makur didn't want his life like this. He didn't want to live like his father. He didn't want many wives, but his father pushed him. By the time he was 25, he had 4 wives. Each time he got married, his father had told him it would bring honor and blessing. But now things wasn't as happy as his father had promised. Makur was pulled from his thought when he heard a loud crash inside the house. He stood up quickly, his tall frame tense. The voice of his wives grew louder and angrier. "You think you're better than me because your son goes to private school?" shouted Abuk, his first wife. "At least my children are respectful," snapped Nubul, the second wife. Makur walked into the house and found the 2 women arguing furiously. Abuk, with her bright red dress, stood with her arms crossed, glaring at Nubul. Nubul leaned on the dining table, her face full of anger. The other 2 wives, Akon and Adrel, stood nearby. Akon had a small smirk on her face, while Adrel looked nervous. "Enough!" Makur's voice boomed. Everyone went silent and turned to look at him. Makur looked at each of them with disappointment. "What is going on here?" he asked. "She's been spreading lies about me to the neighbors," Abuk said, pointing angry at Nibol. "Oh, please," Nibol replied with a roll of her eyes. "Maybe if you weren't so bossy, people wouldn't talk about you." Makur raised his hands to stop them from talking. "We have a bigger problems to solve," he said. "Do you think this fighting helps? What do you think the children learn when they hear you?" The room grew quiet. Abuk looked a little ashamed, but Nubol still looked defiant. Akon shrugged, and Aluel avoided looking at everyone. Makur sighed heavily. He turned and walked outside, needing fresh air. The sound of cricket filled the yard, and the stars were starting to appear in the sky. He leaned on a wooden post and whispered a prayer. "God, give me strength to keep this family together." Just as he opened his eyes, he heard someone behind him. Makur, he turned to see Abuk standing on the doorway. Her face looked worried, and she was nervously twisting her hands. "What is it now?" he asked, his voice tired. Abuk stepped closer, her eyes staring around as if she didn't want anyone to overhear. "It's about Nubol," she said softly. "She's planning something that could ruin us all." Makur stared at her, his heart sinking. What could Nubol be planning? Thank you so much, friends, for joining us in this story about Makur and his troubled family. This story is indeed dramatic and very intense. We're going to upload the second part in 2 days. It's a long story full of drama, full of suspense, full of conflicts. But do join us for the second part. We want to know what Newball is planning for what sort of thing she's planning that could destroy the family. To find out, do join us next week. It's going to be an exciting episode, another episode. It's going to be full of twists and turns. So don't forget to like and subscribe to this video if you have enjoyed it. And please do turn on the notification bell so that you can get a notification once we upload this amazing and interesting story. All right, take care. Bye.